Welcome on Primetime, Watchmaking in the news, and as you can probably expect, well, we're going to have quite a lot of Baselworld in this edition with some kind of conclusion and analysis of what went on. We'll also quickly come back on some products we didn't cover in our individual video reports and some other side stories about this pretty crazy event for us because yes, it was indeed rather crazy and super intense. For the very first time, we were directly in the middle of it with our very own booth, and to live the event from the inside is a slightly different experience. I mean, we've been attending Baselworld for quite some years, and I don't want to sound like a veteran, but must admit that for a very small team like us, well, to get organized and prepared took much more energy than initially anticipated. So big congrats to all the brands participating. I now feel much more the pain and stress that goes with it. I mean, you naturally need to send most of your equipment and stuff before the show, and I have to say that I think we had the coolest movers on the planet. I mean, look at this truck, isn't that pretty awesome? Then you need to set it all up, do some tests, and of course the unexpected is almost bound to happen. So for instance, I just bought a brand new server precisely not to take any risk with our rushes, and bada boom, this little fellow just didn't want to light up a few hours before the show. So we had all our necessary material on it, and one of us had to make an express back and forth to Geneva to get an old server. And I know Switzerland is a small country, but that was really unnecessary hassle, and in this case Switzerland was much too big anyhow. All was finally set on time, but you're already feeling pretty exhausted before the serious stuff starts. But off we went for a pretty intense 7 days of pure watch show, and finally the good energy and adrenaline kicked in. And this good energy mainly came from you guys watching us, because it was seriously incredibly fantastic to encounter in real all those that could attend the show, and that either passed by our booth or that we simply met in the middle of two shootings in the vast corridors of the event. I mean, you can't imagine the effect and actual impact of your kind words. This is a real booster for the entire team, and we sincerely feel very privileged to have such an extraordinary audience. We already love all your commenting action on the channel. We naturally can't thank enough our patrons financially supporting us, but this face-to-face interaction is really something special. So for those that couldn't make it to the show, I hope we did our best to bring to you as many videos as possible. And like I had mentioned in the intro of this Baselworld edition, well, we really wanted to give a bit more light to the small players of the industry, because we know that the big ones are already getting quite a lot of attention and visibility elsewhere. So before diving more into watches with the wrap-up of this edition, I just wanted to share with you a special request. One of the guys watching us here in Switzerland is currently studying at the university, and for one of his final paper he needs to conduct a little survey on consumer behavior in the field of watch purchasing. So you will find a link in the description box below, and I promise you it only takes 5 minutes at the most, but I think John, yeah, that's his name, well, he would be super grateful if some of you guys could take these 5 minutes to answer simple questions if you have purchased watches in the last 2-3 years worth $3,000 or more. So for those participating, thanks a lot in advance, and of course this is treated with the utmost confidentiality. John won't keep any of this information for any other use than this survey, and we'll share the result in the following Primetime. Okay, so let's now talk watches and what can be said about this 2018 edition of Baselworld. Well, first of all, you have to keep in mind that the context for the watchmaking industry is a much better one than a year ago. Business has steadily picked up over the last months for almost all watch brands and practically on all geographical markets. I mean, that's a trend that was already noticed at the SIHH earlier this year, and this of course translated into a much more relaxed atmosphere in general. Many brands came with more reasonable products, better priced, but at the same time, this means that we saw a bit less crazy timepieces, you know, these wow pieces, if you see what I mean. So to summarize things, we saw a lot of blue dials, we saw some green dials, we saw smaller case watches, bronze is still a hot material, and skeletonization was almost everywhere. Okay, that was it for my roundup. Okay, not really, but I'm not too far off. What I find truly amazing and something that kind of dazzles me is the hype that surrounds a few brands and timepieces, and I'm naturally referring to the proven once again buzz around Rolex. The new steel GMT got so much attention, it was really incredible. The fact that Tudor, the sister company, also came with its own GMT, naturally participated in this frenzy, but it just kind of demonstrates that you have these power names that can overshadow almost everything on their passage. Same can be said about Patek and their new perpetual calendar Nautilus. Everyone was talking about it, and even a big name like Omega was, I think, a little bit in the shadow of all this, despite coming with some pretty cool watches. For instance, the new version of its Speedmaster with the Dark Side of the Moon Apollo 8 edition. Nice watch with some nice features. Personally, I also like the Speedmaster CK2998 with its pulsometer scale and this kind of panda dial. This is a limited watch, and for the 70th anniversary of the Seamaster, that's a significant watch, well, Omega showed us a rather nice and simple commemorative limited edition version. Actually, there were two versions, a central second one and a small second version, both limited to 1948 pieces. And at Harry Winston's, I saw the Histoire de Tourbillon 9, that is a spectacular triaxial tourbillon with a very original shaped tourbillon cage, but unfortunately didn't manage to film this. I also saw the new Z12, a bi-retrograde hour and minute timepiece, pretty cool mechanism with date indicator on the outside part of the dial. And in the middle of these watchmakers, we also oddly met a Chinese exhibitor showcasing his luxury smartphones only available in China, and the originality is that master watchmaker Kari Voutilainen is involved in this project as he brought his design expertise on the table. But let's now talk about some general feeling about the fair, because one of the most talked thing was its actual resizing. In a matter of 5 years, the number of exhibitors massively shrunk from more than 2,000 to a bit more than 600 this year. And like I was previously saying in some video reports, the very nature of these shows are being questioned more and more. It's not that they are not needed, but their formats has to evolve. Social media totally changed everything. And for brands to spend these vast amounts of money in attending and organizing these shows is becoming a bit more difficult to justify, whatever that means. So yes, a lot less exhibitors, but one has to say that it mainly concerned the jewelry side of things. On the watchmaking part, there were indeed a bit less brands present, but that for sure didn't prevent us of seeing plenty of watches. But something for me that is becoming clearer and clearer is that if one of the purpose of these shows is to let visitors have a feel of what watchmaking is all about, well then there is indeed space for some serious little upgrades. Having met so many of you guys there, something that often came in the discussion is this kind of a slight frustration of not being able to really relate to the brand and their products during the show. What I mean by this is that as a visitor, you are a bit left out of the good stuff, and this is not necessarily the fault of the organizers. Once you're in the fair, what you see is these massive and luxurious booths that are like temples you can't really go into. You're looking at watches behind glass windows, something you can probably do by walking past brand boutiques on fancy avenues around the world, and that's about it. And I think people want more and are actually entitled to. So this is for me the main reason why so many visitors really loved going through the Atelier. That's the section of the show dedicated to the independent players of the industry, where people were able to talk directly with the watchmakers, touch the products, try them on, socially interact, witness the creativity that we thrive to put forward on the Watches TV. Well, those are all essential elements that should be pushed much further throughout the show. Big brands have been asked to come up with these booths when the infrastructure was totally rebuilt some 5 years ago, meaning that they worked on these architectural statements a few years prior to that. But since then, things have changed. Expectations have changed. I can totally understand that when a brand invested these massive sums of money into designing and building these impressive booths, they are now not too eager to invest once again. But nevertheless, they for me represent something a bit from the past. I get that brands are there to make business and they need a bit of privacy, talking to their retailers and so forth. And we are privileged having access to most of it, and we try to bring this forward with our reports. But this remains a public fair, and when you pay 60 Swiss francs to get in, well, maybe something could be done a bit differently. For instance, one booth that for me stands out is Blancpain, where you have a large open area where visitors can interact with artisans demonstrating their skills. This is something people want to see. And when, for instance, we had the visit of some cool French watchmaking students from Brittany on our booth, well, for them that was one of their highlights of the show, plus of course this atelier part. Well, I have a few ideas and we'll see how things will evolve, but this was indeed a pretty pivotal edition for the organizers of Baselworld, and one of their biggest relief was the confirmation by most of the big brands that they will be present next year. There was indeed a big risk that some of these big players would cancel their participation, and you only need a couple of these big names to pull out to send a very negative message which could totally shake the organization of the event itself. Okay, finally, all these brands reconducted their participation, but only committed to 2019. So the risk is still there, and one of the main reasons why these brands are pursuing is that they didn't have to dismantle their booth till the next edition. So, I mean, therefore saving quite a chunk of money there, but it also proves that this infrastructure won't be used by any other events in the meantime, and shows rather bluntly its disproportion. So we'll see how things will evolve. I remain confident that things will get better, but this current downfall, of course, also had a big impact on the Basel economy as a whole. I mean, less hotels rooms were needed. You could find places in all the restaurants, which, by the way, didn't prevent some of them to stupidly continue with some unnecessary price exaggeration. And I really think that the entire Basel environment need to take their responsibility and stop abusing of their position. Because it seriously tires everyone, brands, journalists, visitors, and at the end they could all lose out instead of being a bit more responsible. So please don't think short-term and immediate profit, those days are over, but look at the big picture and adapt accordingly. We've seen watch brands taking this direction with more reasonable products, so this can be achieved. Anyhow, coming back on the event and watches seen there, well, there's a couple of things I wanted to add. First, and this is not something we missed out on, but for me one of the coolest projects revealed at Baselworld was the AMC by Urwerk. We had seen the first glimpse of this incredible pendule sympathique project at the SIHH, but we didn't mention it in our Basel coverage because we had a much deeper and privileged access to Urwerk, and we will very soon share with you a very exclusive report on the behind the scene of this mind-blowing endeavor. So hang in there, something special coming your way very soon. And talking about Urwerk, we also saw some young guys that launched a new brand called Phenomen, and there is a bit of Urwerk mixed with a bit of MBNF in their first timepiece, and it's always cool to see fresh faces and witness the passion that pushes people to come up with a new project. It's really this constant creativity that amazes me and just proves that we still haven't seen it all. Something, for instance, we also highlighted with the Volt watch and its fully turnable movement. Well, there are still so many cool things to be seen and discover. It really makes me happy, and I hope you too. And since we're mentioning creativity, also wanted to add a special word about Citizen, who had an incredible artistic display on their booth with no less than 97,000 base plates suspended in mid-air. The effect was totally mesmerizing and it was just fabulous to walk through it. A real experience, loved it. We're reaching the end of this edition of this pretty short prime time. Basel really took over all we had to say about watchmaking. Again, it was a great experience for us to be in the middle of it. It was fantastic to meet so many of you. Thanks so much for your appreciation and comments. We are deeply touched by all this. Special thanks to our patrons. You are now a bit more than 160 supporting us. This is unbelievable and really makes a difference. I can promise you that. And I think we will not disappoint you with the next video reports coming your way. We have some pretty heavy stuff in line. I think you guys will be happy with this. And personally, I am not too unhappy of getting Baselworld behind us and concentrating on some new contents. And I believe I must have been the very last journalist on site since I had to take care of dismantling our little setup there. Quite a different atmosphere, but had to be done. I am also super happy of pulling our watch tripping action on the way, and therefore being able again to meet some of you guys in real for what will be a great adventure, I am sure. There might still be a couple of places available, so check the link below if you want to join us at the end of May. Thanks for watching. Viva Watchmaking.